One of the most stylish and well-built hot rods was a flathead-powered 32 Roadster that belonged to Doane Spencer of the Stokers Car Club of Glendale, California. This hot rod was a marvel of automotive engineering and craftsmanship. The frame was Z'd or kicked up in the front and rear, which let the body sit lower on the frame, giving it a more aggressive stance. The front frame horns were cut off, and a custom-made Nerf bar doubled as the headlight stand. A leather interior, which was unusual for the time, was installed using a Cadillac seat with a pull-down armrest. A Gordon Schroeder steering box was installed, which put the steering box shaft through the side of the cowl with a pitman arm attached, leaving more room in the engine compartment and interior. The Doane Spencer car also featured custom-made hairpin radius rods and a solid hood with louvers fabricated by Doane. Doane also used a George Duval windshield, which gave the Roadster a more stylized look.
It was the first car to have a Duval windshield. You know, everything new that came out from Lincoln, you know, Doane would put on it. He worked in the Lincoln dealership, so he was an innovator. I'd love to show the car with the body off and the body on because the chassis is absolutely brilliant.
Doane constantly updated the car, and the exhaust was routed through the frame in 1950 when Doane was preparing the car with an overhead valve Y-block engine to be raced in the Mexican road race. When the race was canceled, the car sat in pieces until Rod and Custom editor Lynn Weiland purchased the famous Roadster. The car then ended up in the hands of Rod and Custom associate editor Neal East.
Doane had planned to run it in the Mexican road race, and they stopped having the Mexican road race before he did that. So he sold the Hallebrand wheels off of it, sorry to say, and several other things, and took it apart and stored it, and Lynn and he were friends, and Lynn eventually purchased it from Doane and started putting it back together. And it was back together and had the big Holman and Moody Y-block. Lynn never did get it running. It was never wired and so forth, so the car never turned a wheel with anything but a flathead. Lynn, eventually his fortunes changed and he decided to dispose of some things, and I had worked with him on the car some, helped him to get it to the LA Roadster show at the Hollywood Bowl parking lot. The first couple of years we did that. And so he contacted me to see if I wanted to be the caretaker for a while. That's when I started putting a flathead back in it. Had the Lincoln transmission with overdrive in it. Still had the quick change and so forth on it. So
the Roadster was then sold to collector Bruce Meyer.
The Doane Spencer car is the holy grail as far as I'm concerned of 32 Roadsters. It's the oldest hot rod extant. It was started in the 30s, and fortunately it was taken out of Doane's hands in 1950, because if it had still been in Doane's hands up till today, it would have independent suspension and it wouldn't look anything like what it does today.
First of all, you have to understand that Doane had no interest whatsoever in nostalgia. Yesterday was old fish as far as Doane was concerned. I did get in touch with Doane, and I had run into him several places and so on. When I got the car running, I went by his shop in Eagle Rock. At the time, I had put Kelsey Hayes wire wheels on it, big and littles, of course. And Doane came out of his shop and looked at it and walked around it a couple of times, and his only comment was, "Get them dumb wheels and tires off of that car."